Please welcome our presenter, Samit Khare.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, you got my name now. My name is Samit Khare, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm actually surprised to see so many people here because it's like 1 hour after lunch, and I was thinking a lot of people would go back by now. So I'm very, very happy. There's something about this subject probably that attracts most of you. What I'll do is I'll quickly start with my introduction, and then I'll throw open time to hear from you guys. What are you expecting from this session? Is there something specific that came to your mind when you read this subject and you read about the description of today's session? So to begin with my introduction, my name is Samit Khare, and I work for an organization called SDG Corporation. This company works in the IT consulting field, providing advisory services on information security, privacy, risk, and they also have a product called TrueOps, which is a GRC product with some very unique and differentiating factors. In my prior life, I have worked as Chief of Risk, I've worked as Chief of Information Security. I was also appointed a board-appointed officer by a Fortune 10 organization. So I've seen both sides of the world. I have seen large Fortune organizations and served at the board. I've been a CISO and a CRO, and I'm now a consultant for the last 5 years. So I've seen all the 3 different areas of information security expectations. With that quick introduction, let me throw open some time for you guys to articulate what you're expecting from this session and what would you like me to stress more upon and what are things you want to know from me during the next 1 hour. So let's start, and anybody can start, whoever wants to just share their thoughts and ideas about the subject. Anything that comes to your mind when you were stepping in for this session, when you read the headline, what came to your mind? What were you expecting? Yeah.
Innovation. You know, when you think of GRC, you think they pretty well have a framework.
Yes.
I'm curious as to what your innovation by design is.
Okay. May I have your name, please?
Jim Angle.
Jim. So Jim has got a very good question. Jim is saying when we talk about GRC, we know it's a very, very structured, process-oriented, and industry has probably matured now in terms of what is expected out of GRC. So what does innovation by design mean with respect to GRC? That's what he would want to know from this session. Is that right, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts you want to share? This one.
You know, the people aspect of design.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about innovation by design.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's technology, but it's also people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in your perspective on with the design of who the actors are within this
Okay.
framework.
Your name, please?
Adam.
Adam. So Adam has a question that when we talk about innovation by design, are we talking about the people aspect or technology aspect? What are the different actors and probably which are more important with respect to the others, right? Okay. So you got the second very important point. Yep. Yes. Okay, I couldn't hear you very clearly, but what I could make out was that your, what's your name? Hamel. His point is that one of the objectives of the session was to reduce compliance burden. And how does this, or how would this help in reducing compliance burden? I think that's a very, very important question, and it's there in mind of most CISOs today. And why is it there in mind of more CISOs? Because the regulations and standards, everything, the pressure is increasing on one side. On the other side, there have been breaches in the industry. Consultants would come in and say to the CISO, and you would have heard this many times, it's no longer about whether or not you're going to be hacked, it's about when are you going to be hacked. And I know it's probably too cliche, but it's being used a lot of times in the industry. So yes, we are going to very definitely talk about how to reduce compliance burden. In fact, my case study in the end would talk specifically about it, so you would get that point. Any other points before we start? Okay, so with those 3 very important questions, let's jump into our session. These are the session goals. You would have read it. It's in the app. It was on the website. This is what we're going to cover. What I want to say up front, very honestly to you is, I have not prepared for this presentation like a speech. I have not practiced myself for this presentation, so it's going to be more of a dialogue, and I'm being very, very, very honest with you. The reason I have not practiced or not prepared for it is that the subject is very, very new in the industry. And in fact, if you Google it, you would hardly find, probably not find any information about this subject, specifically GRC innovation by design. So before I jump into, and you would have, I did not go through this, you know about these things. Before I jump into it, I just want to clarify the term innovation by design so that you can keep the next few minutes in perspective and you can understand what we're going to talk about. And let's keep this as a dialogue. I'm not here to train. Let's share ideas, and maybe we'll brainstorm together in next 1 hour and come up with something unique which we'll all take back to our organizations. So that's what my idea is going to be. So innovation by design. This term came to me not very long ago, about a year ago, and innovation by design is still a term which was used in the industry. What was more used by security professionals was secure by design, and I'm sure most of you would have heard about it, right? Security by design, which basically means that you start thinking about security right from the inception of a life cycle. It could be a system life cycle, process life cycle, application life cycle. As soon as you start thinking about, conceiving about a new process, a new technology, you start thinking about security. So that security doesn't become an afterthought. Security is inbuilt, embedded into whatever you do, right? So that's where I took my innovation by design concept. And what I mean here is whatever you do, whatever life cycle you are planning to start or you're already operating upon, inject innovation in the life cycle. And I'll tell you why this is important. You talk to any organization, big, small, right from Microsoft to Google to Facebook to any organization, they all will tell you about ideation. You would have heard that term, right? Ideation. You would hear about, I saw those IBM ads many, many years ago that they used to have this big room where everybody would just sit and brainstorm and bring in ideas. I have seen this in many organizations from my life, and I told you I was part of a Fortune 50 organization also, and I saw it there also. The problem with this is that when you come to a room and you're thinking that today there will be a flash of brilliance and we will come up with a great innovative idea, well, that may work, but I haven't seen many times that something comes out through these brainstorming discussions. The problem is when people come to a room for innovation, they kind of get disconnected from what they do in their daily operations, in their day-to-day life. And hence, they come there to think about something new. And that's where the problem lies. I strongly believe that innovation, the most realistic innovation will happen on ground, where the rubber meets the road, where operational people are actually operating, or even where the strategic people are actually thinking about strategy at any level. When they are doing their work, if they keep innovation in their mind, only then they're going to come up with innovative ideas. They may not execute all the ideas immediately, but at least the idea will be captured. And that's what my proposal for today's session is. And when we talk about GRC innovation by design, I'm just connecting now GRC term to it. I'm talking about the ISMS, Information Security Management System, and GRC, which is Governance, Risk, and Compliance, the policies, procedures, and the entire framework of ISMS that broadly covers GRC framework needs to get innovation in its design, and we'll talk more about it. Any questions so far before we start? No questions? Okay, so I have broken down this session into 3 simple segues. We'll start with challenges of CISO. This will not be new to you. You may add and you may tell me more things as we move forward. Just a couple of slides just to catch up on what are the current challenges of CISO. Then we're going to look at innovation-based management systems. I'm going to use the term management systems a lot. I'm referring to information security management system and innovation management system today. And if you would have read standards like ISO 27001 or ISO 20000, you would know what a management system is. If anybody has questions around what is a management system, you can ask, and we should answer that question before we start anything else. Okay? Any questions in terms of what is 27001 and what is a management system? Okay, so I'll assume that most of you broadly know what management system is. We'll still cover it in bits and pieces while we are going through. And finally, a case study where I'm going to talk about what the gentleman at the end said, reducing compliance burden. This is a very important case study. And if out of this entire next 1 hour, if you just take away the case study with you, you will feel that you've got something very valuable from this session. So let's move forward with that. Okay, we can replace the term CISO here with CXO. The reason being, I'm sure you would have heard in all the sessions today or in most of the sessions today that information security is no longer a challenge only of a CISO. It's a challenge of the board, it's the challenge of the CEO, it's the challenge of the entire CXO community. It's no longer something which is required as a basic expectation. It is a differentiator now. It is something which all the organizations wanted, and they also market about it. They also go and talk about it to their customers and their partners. So we can replace the term CISO here, but only for reference right now. Today, the CISO is worried about many, many things. I'll not use the word worried, but they're concerned about many, many things. They're concerned about their network. They're concerned about their applications. They're concerned about the security breaches. There have been a lot of breaches in the last 4 or 5 years, very, very massive ones. And more than the financial loss that an organization goes through, I think it's a reputation that gets impacted a lot. So breaches have become something which is upfront on the table, and in every board discussion, every discussion with the CEO, the CISO talks about why he is assuring that there will be no breaches, or there is at least less likelihood of breaches in their organization, or what he feels needs to be done immediately to ensure that the breaches are reduced. So breaches are very, very important. Compliance. Because the breaches have increased, customer expectations have increased, and hence the expectations of all the regulators have increased. Reasonable security, so most laws about 10 years ago used to have a small paragraph and they used to talk about reasonable security. But the benchmark of reasonable security is also going up. While laws may not become very, very, very specific in terms of which services and which ports to close or not to close, but they are getting very, very stringent in terms of expectations around information security management and privacy management. So compliance is becoming very, very important. Supplier risk. Suppliers have become strategic partners now because organizations, as you know, are using a lot of suppliers today, but as we move forward, organizations are going to use more and more and more of suppliers. And I include even the cloud providers to be suppliers here, and you know most organizations have in their strategy a path to go to cloud. Some organizations are taking it easy. They're not going immediately. They're starting with private cloud. But trust me, and you all know that most organizations would be on some sort of cloud in next few years. No organizations will stay away from cloud. That no longer will be a viable solution for a large organization or even a small organization. Business continuity is very, very important. So if breaches are going to happen, if CISOs have accepted that fact that something wrong may happen in their organization, whatever they do, business continuity obviously becomes very, very important. Customer expectations in terms of availability has increased drastically. So they are putting a lot of efforts in terms of ensuring adequate business continuity. Not everything can become 100% business continuity or business availability situation, but depending upon the business need, depending upon the risk, depending upon the expectation and ROI, some sort of business continuity is required in every process for every asset. Mobility, expectations, consumerization and expectations of customers has risen. Even today, as we are sitting here, we know we have got a mobile app, and we all are using it to track where we are, what's the next session, what's going to happen. Our information is also in there. Some of us may be a little concerned about what information is in there. Am I being tracked more than I have allowed ISACA to, so there are concerns about mobility as the need of mobility has increased and everybody wants to go mobile as soon as possible. Cloud, I just mentioned, organizations have cloud in their strategic roadmap. If they have cloud in their roadmap, they've got a lot of concerns. Today, the data is in my data center. Tomorrow, the data is going in Amazon's data center. Am I covered from regulatory perspective? One, and second, has Amazon designed adequate security for my environment, which will safeguard my information? And one is design. The second is Amazon really operating and providing me the same services, the same platform, the same tools they committed to me when they signed the contract? So there are concerns about cloud. Identity and access management and insider threat in last few years has become very important. The reason being, if you look at most of the hacks and most of the breaches, somewhere they are connected to insider threat, and insider threat can be indirectly associated with identity and access management. So that's become very important. So these are the broad concerns of CISO today. Anything else that comes to your mind immediately when you talk about CISO and his day-to-day dialogue with his seniors, CEOs, and CXOs, and with his team members? Anything else that you see your leadership talk about, or you talking with your team members in your organization, which is not represented here? Okay. Yes, it will cover. Yes, yes. Very good point. I agree. Training awareness is a very important part. We can add it here. Good point. Yep. Yes, so PII, you can look at it from two perspectives. One is compliance, and if I have PII around health, I have to comply to HIPAA and all the worries around HIPAA. That can be covered under compliance. And otherwise, in general, PII risk management, because all CISOs know that they have to go beyond compliance. So I agree, from risk management perspective, PII is important. Yep. I'm sorry? Talent management, resource management is very, very important in many senses. One is the CISO organization, the talent he is having in his organization, whether he has the right talent or not. And the second is whether he's going back to the training and awareness thing, whether he's imparting the right training, education, and awareness within the organization and different roles within the organizations who are supposed to know things they're supposed to do, things they're not supposed to do, and certain techniques which I'm going to touch upon in some slides later. Anything else? Very good points. I like that. Yep. Metrics, very good point. Yep. It's an old saying, you can improve only those things which you measure. So metrics is very, very important, I agree. Though you can indirectly cover it in compliance, there is an ISO standard. Which standard is in ISO on metrics? Yep. Okay, governance, good point. So governance and metrics can be associated. You will do governance via metrics. Anybody knows which ISO standard represents metrics of information security from 27,000 family? You know 27,000 family, right? 27,004, there you go. So that's a very good standard. If you have not read it, go ahead and buy it, read it. It's an amazing standard. How to think about metrics. It will really, really help you. Okay, very good point. So we'll move forward. A quick touch upon management systems. I said I'll quickly touch upon it. Management systems basically mean overall infrastructure and framework which help you establish, implement, operate, maintain, and continually improve your information security. It gives you a structure of not only implementing and establishing it, but continually reviewing information security using metrics and ensuring that your information security processes and procedures have been adequately designed and are continually being improved. It consists of 7 key aspects. Context, anything that you do with respect to information security has to have a context. So you need to build the context, which means if you are on a new journey, because I was having a discussion with a lot of people today in this conference, and they said that that they are in a process of establishing information security in new business units or new setups, and they wanted to know a roadmap of how to start. I think this using a management system is a great start for people who want to establish information security new. So context is very, very important, where you go out and meet your stakeholders. You ask them what their expectations are. You look at their past audit reports. You look at their past risk reports. You understand the legal and regulatory landscape. You understand the relationship management, internal and external stakeholders in terms of legal and regulatory bodies. So the entire context is important, and you need to understand the context to prepare the scope of information security. Leadership, somebody talked about resources. So leadership consists of 2-3 key aspects. The first is, if you want to drive information security or even innovation management system, you need a leadership commitment. And that commitment should be visible. It cannot be a commitment given by the CEO to some of his direct reports in a boardroom. That's not enough. That will not run through the entire organization. So leadership commitment via emails, via town halls, via putting policies in place is very, very important to drive any management system. Roles and responsibilities, you may put in all the policies, you may put in all the procedures, but if you have not identified who is responsible for which piece, who is accountable for which piece, the entire RACI matrix, you will not be able to drive any management system. So that is very, very important. Planning, before you start any work, you obviously have to plan. What do they say? It's a very good saying. Failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So planning is very, very important. And planning consists of understanding what the organization goals are for which you're trying to do this, create this management system. Some information will come through dialogue, some information will come through reading documents, having discussions, and for some you'll have to do some exercise, and that exercise includes defining high-level risk portfolio of the organization. What is the inherent risk of the organization? Somebody mentioned PII today. So is there any specific PII that the management system should cater for? So all that is done in planning. And then finally, resources. So once you know what needs to be done, once you know the context, now you know what type of resources you need to bring into the organization. So you identify your resources. Do you want to move resources from within? They will be shared resources. You want to hire new resources. What will be their roles and responsibilities, job description, etc. And then comes the operations. So after you've done all the planning, now it's the operations stage. In the operations stage, you take the risk you have identified, the umbrella risks you have identified, the goals and objectives you have noted, the legal and regulatory aspect you have noted. Now you clearly articulate, okay, what are going to be my procedures? How is this thing going to work? And it could be an information security program, or it could be an innovation. As I said, I'm going to talk about two things today: information security and innovation management. So information security and innovation procedures, you start building those procedures, you start creating your workflows, your outputs, your measurement, the metrics, you try to create all that, and then you operationalize it, you kick it off, you release the procedures, you publish the procedures, people start executing it, you start monitoring it. So all that happens in operations. And then comes evaluation. When something starts in an operational phase, data starts getting generated, and you start using that data, you start using the feedback, the data coming from metrics. If audits are happening within the management system, then the audit reports, all that information starts flowing to you. And you start using that information, you correlate information, prioritize information, and you come up with improvement ideas for the management system. It's a different subject and a long subject which you can read separately about what happens after a metrics shows you a negative result. There are 2 or 3 different directions you can go, and if you read ISO 27004, it will very clearly tell you what is the right way of handling metrics. And trust me, people who have not read 27004 may have, and I'm not saying everybody, but may have a very different perspective of how metrics are handled. Once you read 27004, you would know it's a lot more scientific in terms of how metrics should be handled. So evaluation, and finally the improvement. Once you get your inputs from metrics, you get your audit reports, the non-conformities, then it's the stage of improvement. And when you're doing improvement, one of the most critical aspects is handling of non-conformities. And non-conformities are handled via corrective actions. I have one very good question, and somebody was asking me today, so that's where I just thought I'll ask here. What is the difference between correction and corrective action? And I think there's a lot of confusion. I see a lot of debates going around. Anybody wants to just quickly throw in your ideas and around what is the difference between doing a correction versus doing a corrective action? And there used to be a preventive action earlier which has been dropped. Most CISOs, and you would be surprised to hear this. If you're surprised, please ask me why. Preventive action term is no longer used by most CISOs. Why? And what is my original question was difference between correction and corrective action. And then the second point is, if you're surprised if I'm saying preventive action term is no longer used in the CISO community, why? Is that surprising? Perfect. Perfect. Did everybody understand that? Okay, I'll repeat it. He gave accurate answer, and that's what it means. So correction is if something is wrong, you correct the situation. And I'll take one very easy example. If your organization has a process of implementing access card readers at all the places, in one critical room, the access card reader was not working during an audit, you go and fix that access card reader, that's a correction. What is a corrective action? You do a root cause analysis, you find out why that action card reader was not working, and then you go after the root cause analysis and implement 5 different types of, or probably 5 different types of controls. Anybody who is CISA or CISM can tell me, what are the 5 different types of controls as defined in CISA review manual or CISM review manual? What are the 5 different types of controls? Come on, this is an easy one. ISACA seminar, come on, you can't do this. Okay, preventive, detective, corrective, compensatory, and deterrent. Now, she said preventive, and I said, okay. And just a few minutes ago, I said preventive action is no longer used. What's the difference between a preventive action and a preventive control? Is this getting too boring? Should I change the subject? No? I'm sorry. Okay, so preventive, sorry. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then what is preventive control? Mm-hmm. Okay, you're pretty close. I would say you're almost right. Anybody else who wants to differentiate between preventive control and preventive action? And we're talking about information security in general. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, yeah, pretty close, and I think that's what he was also saying. It's not, it may sound like not a big deal. It's just a terminology change. It's just the expectation change. Now the new expectation is, going back to corrective action, the original expectation for corrective action was what I explained to you, right? You do a root cause analysis, and you ensure that next time access card reader for this building will always be functional because we have put in these additional controls. Okay, if suppose the root cause analysis said that maintenance did not happen, that was the root cause analysis, and you put in an additional preventive control that there is now a maintenance checklist, there'll be a maintenance escalation tracker, and there's an automated alert which goes out to people who have to do maintenance, and there is a reverse acknowledgement which comes back and it states maintenance has been done. Suppose that was the situation and it was fixed. So that was the original expectation. In the earlier versions or earlier conversations, the preventive action in that situation was that if you take that learning And if you go to other entities, so if I have a building here, and I have a building in, say, on the East Coast in New York or New Jersey, if I take learnings to that part, that used to be called preventive action. Okay, you are trying to prevent something from occurring in a new scenario, in a new situation. Or vice versa, or just a different situation. When you did a root cause, you discussed about maintenance. Now, if you take the learning of maintenance of access card reader and go to your CCTV cameras maintenance, that used to be called a preventive action. Now, the term was dropped because now the expectation is this is part of corrective action. And I can put a bet on this. Most corrective action reports do not cover this, unfortunately. And most auditors, especially auditors who are from SOX background and SSAE background, they would accept just a correction when they submit an audit report, which is not fair, which is not, and CISOs and most of the organizations would accept it because obviously they don't want too much of impunity from those guys. But ideally, once you get a non-conformity, you have to do a correction, you have to handle the situation, fix, you do all those stuff. But you take corrective action for which you do root cause analysis, and you put in preventive, detective, deterrent, compensatory, all those controls, whichever is viable. And you also take the learnings of root cause analysis to other buildings, to other areas, to other business units. That's also part of a corrective action. Okay, is that clear? Is it making sense? So I think as information security owners, and I'm sure there are some auditors also sitting here, which is not very, may not be very good for information security owners because auditors also now get to know this. But yes, for the entire community, because the goal is same, the goal is to improve information security health. This is what we all are supposed to tell all the asset owners and all the strategy owners that from tomorrow onwards, if there is any non-conformity, I want a correction, yes, I want a corrective action. The corrective action should include not only improvements or controls in this specific area, please take the learning to other areas also and submit that report to me. There's another aspect of effectiveness of controls, which we can discuss at some other time, okay? That's also important. Because implementing control and control is effective or not, both are important. When all these 3 or 4 aspects are met, only then an issue should be closed. An audit issue should be closed, or a security incident should be closed. Okay, very important. I think we'd spend more time on this than I planned, but okay. This I think I did mention earlier in the discussion. The CISO today is not only responsible for preserving the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. He is not just one direct report of a CIO or a CRO. The CISOs are coming in front, if they are not already in front. They are meeting all the CXO level, CEOs and all the other counterparts, as well as the board and the other investors. So CISO has become very important in every organization. Now, when the CISOs focus a lot on preserving confidentiality, integrity, and availability, I can be wrong, and please say if I'm wrong, okay? I find that most information security leaders, let's not say most, but some of the information security leaders I met are focused so much on technology, are focused so much on implementing that specific control at the gateway, in the network, or in the SDLC lifecycle, ensuring that OWASP controls are met and all those stuff, that they forget that their responsibility is way larger. And it's a difficult job. CISO's job is very difficult. Is that a right observation? Do you guys also see that CISOs are talking more about implementing IDM solutions, DLP solutions, SIEM solutions? Now the newer thing is user and entity behavior analytics. You would have heard about it, all those new tools coming up. And there is very less focus on processes and his organization, other than the competency, resource, training, and all those stuff. Is that a right understanding? Okay, let me explain it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The main challenge is not, at least my understanding, is not or the CIO
Yes.
in the past.
Yes.
And most of the CISOs are still too technology focused.
Yes.
So they have this gap that needs to be filled by this team or by someone else. But for me, this is the main challenge now.
It's a big challenge.
It's really, the CISO role needs to be more translating between what can be done,
Yes.
either from a technology
Yes.
standpoint
Or process or governance. Yeah. Yeah.
to the business language.
Yes. And please, if it sounds like we are doing CISO bashing, and if there are CISOs out here, I'm so sorry. The idea is not to do CISO bashing. We're just using the word CISO as a reference because we're talking about information security. To be fair, the technology is moving at such a fast pace. Most CISOs' budgets are asked to, the board asks them to reduce the cost of infrastructure, cost of everything, and they've got only so much of time. How can they think about so many other things? So I give them that, but having said that, having considered bandwidth, as he said, there is a need of ensuring that CISOs look beyond just technology. I'm no way saying that they should not implement technology, but there should be a risk-based technology implementation in the entire dialogue in that space. One of the key aspects which I believe every CISO should think about, if he thinks about just this one line, I think he will be able to better manage his resources. He needs to run, every CISO needs to run his organization like a business. He is providing services, it's his business, there is certain cost which is going into it. The only difficult part for him would be how does he calculate return on investment. There was very less knowledge, very vague knowledge in the past, but now there are very scientific methods of calculating return on investments for CISOs. So in total, CISOs have to look at their organization, that they are running a company within this larger umbrella, they are providing services, they have to make sure that their services are accepted by the rest of the organization. They can't just force information security. And I think that's been one thing which I have also done it in my past life. We try to force information security. It works for short term, but people find workarounds and the culture doesn't change, the behavior doesn't change. In that sense, CISO also needs to become a mentor, a coach, a counsel, etc. But the most important line for a CISO, run his organization like business. If you need to implement CMMI for services for the CISO organization's processes, do that. If not in totality, pick up best practices from CMMI, pick up best practices from 9001. I know nobody uses it now, but 9001, CMI, use the process approach, use Six Sigma, but CISO's processes have to mature. And I think right now CISOs are focused so much on managing breaches, managing compliance. Okay, I am meeting the risk. I have aligned my risk assessment process to ISO 27005 and NIST risk assessment methodology. I am good. I am the best. That's not how it works. He has to look into processes time and again, make it very easy to use, very, very simple. And that's the key message from this slide. I'm going to move forward quickly to the next slide because I think I've spent too much time on initial slides. Okay. Now to make his processes simple, to make his processes faster, to do everything I have been talking about, one of the key tools, and I'm not saying this is the only tool, but one of the key tools is innovation. And organizations have realized that for many, many years now. And that's why I said earlier in the program, in the session, that innovation programs, investing dollars in innovation has been happening in the industry. All the big organizations are investing in innovation. But my only challenge to that approach is, and I'm not saying that approach should not be followed. Yes, please do programs, put initiatives, put dollars. My challenge is that if you're not going to put innovation ideas within your day-to-day operational processes, real innovation, on-the-ground innovation, low-cost innovation, those are low-hanging fruits which will never happen in your organization. Okay? So innovation-based management system. Information security management system, we all know. ISO 27001 is the standard. Requirements document, 27002 is best practices, 27004 is measurement, 27005 is risk management, and there are 27007, 8, there are other standards around auditing, etc. ISO is currently working on innovation management system. It's still it's not even work in progress. They have just thought about it, I think about a year ago. It's just a thought right now sitting in drafts. They're looking for partners across the world from different countries. So 50,000 series will be represented by innovation management system. There are some very, very good white papers and work papers which are on Google. You can go out and read. There are very good ideas around how innovation management system should work. There are some frameworks designed by Microsoft, which they have put on their website. You can read that. How do they think about innovation? There are some ideas which are thrown by Yahoo in very old, which was very, very good. I read many years ago. So there are some very good ideas going around. Google has got some very good frameworks. But ISO is now coming up with a management system. There's a difference between innovation, running an innovation program versus a management system. Okay, management system is more holistic. Management system is more strategic. And that's why it's more successful when you're looking for implementing in large organizations. Okay, so when you embed innovation in information security, you get an innovation-based ISMS. ISMS is Information Security Management System. And in the next few slides, I'm going to quickly talk about how does that interjection happen. Okay, but what's the benefit? The immediate benefit is that innovation is no longer just a flash of brilliance. While flash of brilliance will still happen, you will still have Mark Zuckerbergs and others who will come up with great ideas and something innovative will happen. But it will not remain only a flash of brilliance. It will not become a lucky accident. People will not just stumble upon innovation, which has happened in the past. It will be a more structured approach. It will be a more scientific approach. And the thing which I started the program with, that it will not rely only on a separate program or initiative. You will have innovation embedded in your processes. So that's the other benefit. We are looking at culture change. And that can only happen if there are repeatable and reproducible processes around innovation. And innovation will be considered in the entire life cycle, be it application life cycle, system life cycle, process life cycle, any life cycle CISO caters to, innovation will be embedded. And finally, without getting into too many details, what happens is you get an improved process, you get a new process, improved process. There is growth in the CISO's organization, there is growth in the overall organization, there is cost reduction, there are all those sort of benefits. And I'm sure you all understand the benefits of innovation. Any questions on this slide before we move forward? Anything that comes to your mind with respect to anything we have discussed so far? If you wanted to ask a question in earlier slides and I kind of moved forward, it's still in your mind, you can ask. No? Should we move forward? Okay. Okay. There are three ways innovation can be injected in ISMS. Okay. And you guys, we all can brainstorm today in next 5-10 minutes and think of more ideas. But broadly, three broad portfolios. The first is harmonization of two management systems. So there is a framework for innovation. There is a framework for information security. Information security framework is called ISMS. Innovation is called IMS. Information Security Management System, Innovation Management System. Both require things to be planned, operated, and improved. Both require interaction with the business. Instead of information security and innovation team going separately to business and asking for their time, can they come together and ensure everything? And if we quickly go back to previous slide of management system, I'm sorry, just for reference, everything that happens here happens for both the management systems. That's the first point, where I am saying that harmonize the requirements of ISMS, that is 27001, with ISO 50000 series, and make sure that you're not going to business separately. It's not just about reducing business bandwidth. It's also about when both the teams come together, you actually think about ideas of innovation within ISMS. So it helps in many ways. Do you know which standard represents the, and I'm asking this question because if most of you know about it, then you will be able to relate to this. There's a standard which talks about integration between 27001 and ISO 20000. 20000 is service management system, IT service management system. Which standard talks about integration of 27001 and 20000, which is basically integrating information security and IT service management. Those who have read ITIL and ITIL frameworks, the equivalent of ITIL framework is ISO 20000. Anybody knows the standard name or about the standard or has read the standard? Okay, ISO 27013, again a great standard of ISO. maybe I'm doing too much of ISO selling here, but that's another good standard. So if you would have read that standard, 27001 and 20,000 integration, which is 27,013, you can pretty much relate what's going to happen if ISO starts thinking about integrating IMS with ISMS. Right now, they have not even created IMS, okay? This is all right now discussion. But I'm saying once they create IMS, and then if they like my idea or somebody else puts forward this idea, and they start thinking about integrating, that standard kind of lays out the path. But yeah, the first point is harmonizing management systems. The next two are most important. Even if you miss the first one, it's fine. The next two are very important. And it's very simple to understand. So there are innovation techniques, and I'll touch upon 2-3 innovation techniques. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because you can obviously Google it and find out innovation techniques, and you already probably know most of the techniques. But where to inject those techniques? I think there are 2 places you have to inject those techniques. One is you have to use those techniques when you are establishing ISMS or reviewing and improving ISMS, which basically means if you are creating a process of risk management, risk assessment, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. Either you are creating or in the process of reviewing, annual review cycle. Don't just review it from a standpoint of compliance. Don't just review it from the standpoint of issues you have faced or stakeholder feedback. Increase the scope and use innovation techniques to make sure your processes become more simple, more easy to use, more effective, more efficient, more powerful, okay, more communicative, generating the right metrics. But use innovation techniques during establishing processes and during reviewing processes. And these processes could be any process under ISMS. I gave one example of risk management. There could be processes around even when you go out to the stakeholders. Remember, I talked about context, I talked about planning, all those 6-7 areas. For every area, you're going to define procedures. You may have procedures you're trying to review and improve. For all those procedures, use innovation techniques and ensure your processes become better. If you have, and I'm just taking it one level up, okay, and if I am losing you, I'll come back. So if you have quality management system in your organization also, okay, and the quality management system defines how processes or procedures will be written, okay, inject innovation techniques there also, because if you inject it, it's like parent-child relationship. You're going to inject it at the parent level, automatically the child processes will be improved. So rather than it becoming just a direction, just an idea, if you just put it in the QMS, and if the QMS is driving ISMS from documentation, procedure documentation perspective, this line embedding innovation in ISMS will be solved. The next is embedding innovation in procedures. Now suppose you have a procedure of risk assessment. Let's take a different, we've taken risk assessment example. Let's take an example of non-conformity management. Okay, I think that's what is mentioned here. Okay. So non-conformity management, if you have a procedure of managing non-conformities, if you add, and I'm taking one example of innovation, there are many examples of innovation. Suppose we add a few questions, additional questions. So when a non-conformity happens, a root cause analysis needs to be done. Suppose we say, while conducting root cause analysis, you can use the 5 why approach. You know the 5 why approach, why. And there are many other, but this is most commonly used, why. And they say after 5 whys, you don't need to do a RCA. But suppose, along with 5 whys, you also add certain innovative techniques. And one innovative techniques, and I'm going to touch upon it in the next slide, is a checklist format. So suppose we add 5 or 6, not very lengthy questionnaire, but a few questions which trigger the innovative thought process. And we make it mandatory that once you're doing root cause analysis of high severity incidents, you have to answer these 5 questions also. Okay? Or you have to go through this small 15 minutes exercise, which I'm going to talk about in future. But basically, we implement some innovation technique within the process, ISMS procedure, and then when that procedure is executed in real time, when a non-conformity happens, and somebody opens the procedure and says, okay, I need to follow these steps, innovation will automatically, at least idea generation will automatically happen. People will think about innovation during that life cycle. And even if nothing is done for that instance, for that non-conformity, at least the idea will be pulled out and it will be thrown into a next step of innovation, which is ideation and idea analysis. Okay, these are the three different ways innovation can be injected. So harmonizing the management systems. The second is the processes of ISMS, how to create processes and how to improve processes. And the third is within a specific procedure, when a real-time action is happening, when a non-conformity is being handled, when an audit issue is being handled, when a risk is being identified. During that, what are the different things you want users to do and data to be exchanged, which will be helpful for you to innovate immediately, improve immediately, or at least the idea comes out. And when those, remember, those 10, 15 people who sit in a room one day and try to innovate, at least they have inputs to innovate. Okay? Does that make sense? Any other thoughts what other places innovations can be injected? And then we'll talk about how to do this actually. Yeah. Absolutely. Good idea. And yeah, and that will actually come in the third layer, but you're right. So his point was when new controls are being identified for implementation, then if we use innovative techniques, we'll not just go by the books, we'll think about more innovative ways of doing the same thing. And yeah. Yes. So as I said, I'm not going to use this session to cover all the techniques, but I'll cover 3-4 techniques, okay? But if you go to Google, it's very simple to find out. The techniques are not important. How to inject an ISMS is important, but I'll still cover it. Okay, so these are the techniques. We can talk about a few of them. 635 brainwriting. You can Google it. It's on Wikipedia. There's nothing unique about it. But basically, it says there is some research which has gone behind these numbers. It's not just a random number. So 6 participants. Each participant gives 3 ideas. They get 5 minutes. Then the idea is rotated. They also mention which direction it should go, how many times it should go, and then things are rotated. The person who gets idea from me, the person sitting next to me, if I give him my 3 ideas, he's not supposed to challenge my ideas. He's supposed to develop the idea. So he will take the idea further. Okay, what does this mean? How can it be implemented? So that's called 635 brainwriting. Reverse brainstorming is very, very interesting, and I really like it. Most of the times we think about, okay, I have to secure my organization. This says, how do you unsecure your organization? Put all your mind and thought process around how do you actually unsecure your organization. At a strategic level, at a process level, at a control level, going down to an application level, even at a coding level also if possible. But start thinking about how to unsecure your organization. Because only when you start thinking from a hacker's perspective in your management system and processes also, that's where you will come up with unique ideas around innovation. Okay, that's another way of doing innovation. So all the innovation techniques are only trying to trigger thoughts in your mind. Okay, then they do not give you answers immediately. They're not answers to your problems, or they are not innovation best practices. They are just processes of triggering thoughts. Next is thinking inside the box, called SIT. This is a very famous one used for many, many years now. You will all have heard about think outside the box, but this technique says think inside the box. You don't need to think outside the box. And the reason why they say this is that they go back to the same concept which I was mentioning earlier, that when people come to a room, they throw in random ideas. First meeting to second meeting, it kind of same ideas, random ideas, not so much valuable for organization. But if you think inside the box, what it means is, suppose I have a process, okay? So they have 6 or 7 different tools which they use, and I'll talk about a couple of them. Addition and subtraction. So they'll say, okay, if in this step I add this extra parameter, what's going to happen? Or if I remove this step, what's going to happen? So they're going to do so the team does these kind of activities to see. There's no brain required. You just think about, okay, I removed it, what's worst can happen or what's best can happen. And as you start doing that, ideas start coming to your mind from many perspectives. One, those would have read Lean or studied Lean Six Sigma, they would know that the primary goal of Lean Six Sigma is to remove non-value add waste in processes. So this is something which will help you, because I said CISO has to run his processes, write the business. He need not always think about protecting. He also has to think about efficiency. Okay, so this will help in efficiency. Last one is also very interesting, wishing. Just wish. I wish so. Just to make it more relevant, suppose everybody, an audit has just finished, okay? Now we are reviewing internally with the CISO the audit report. If we inject an action, so if audit review is a process by the CISO, if we inject few steps there which says, once we are reviewing at certain stage in the review, we all will say, I wish this would have happened, or I wish the auditors would have said this or not said this, or report would have contained this. You start wishing. And when you start wishing, innovative ideas start trickling in your mind, and you take them to even if you don't action them immediately, it goes into a log of idea analysis. So these are just 4 techniques. There are hundreds of techniques, not all may be valuable to you, but I am sure if you just pick few techniques, don't try to boil the ocean, don't try to implement all the techniques. Your CISO is going to get really mad, or if you are the CISO, your CEO is going to get really mad, but pick up certain techniques, put in certain processes, start small and see how organization reacts to it. Okay? Any other technique somebody wants to share? Any interesting technique for innovation? Brainstorming we all know, other than brainstorming. Anything else that comes to your mind you would have heard? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's, okay, I'll try to relate it to our discussion, though your question was a little outside our discussion, but our question is, if we take this discussion of GRC, because I think our discussion right now is at operational level, but if we take the discussion up and talk about discussions at strategic meetings, strategy, the process of making strategy, the process of giving vision to the organization, direction to the organization, how do we ensure this innovation by design helps there? It's the same rule. There's nothing new. If the CISO or whoever is responsible for strategy, first of all, if you create a process of strategic thinking should not happen randomly. I think strategic thinking also needs a process in today's world. But if you first create a process of strategic thinking, sorry, you had a different question? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. So what she's saying, she just got an input, where she's saying that, and please correct me if I heard it wrong, that if we hear the executive committee take inputs from customers, that may also help in innovative ideas, right? Okay. Any other thing that comes to your mind? No? Should we move forward? Okay. Here I am just trying to just expanding on what I said earlier, how to inject. So and I probably have already discussed it, so we'll not spend much time here. But suppose we take a sample procedure of non-conformity management, and we add a few questions. All the questions may not be relevant to all the steps, so we need to define which questions are relevant for which steps. But if we add these questions to the templates where non-conformity responses get triggered, and we make the people respond to some additional questions, like the questions here are, what if the step is delayed or the inputs are incorrect? So if you're reacting to a non-conformity, what if your reaction is delayed? You have to think what will happen next. Or what if the inputs that have come to you with respect to non-conformity are incorrect? How should the organization react? This question will help you improve your response process. This is not so much of the third layer. This is the second layer where I mentioned that innovation should be injected in the ISMS. So if you're reviewing your non-conformity process, and if you ask these type of questions for each step, if you've already created a process, and then if you're reviewing, then for each step you say, okay, hypothetically, let's think, if this step is delayed, what's going to happen? If the inputs are wrong, what's going to happen? If there are manual errors, what's going to happen? When you think about these situations, it's okay, if this is going to happen, then I'm going to get into a mode of adding more controls. Is this relevant enough? Is this a significant line item to be improved? If yes, then let's add more controls. Let's add more validation controls. Let's add more check marks. If this is also an input that is coming, like she was saying, from management or from customers, that you're not reacting in time, then let's consider that also. So basically, when you're writing your procedures or when you're improving your procedures, ask more questions around using innovative techniques, or ask more questions around how this would fail or what are the failure points, and try to make your processes more stronger than before. The second question may be more of the third layer. The second question is, what will help in better handling the situation in future? Suppose an incident has happened, and because we're talking about non-conformity, incident has happened, then if you put it in your template for the business users, now everything is solved, controls have identified, implemented, you made an additional column and you say, okay, how can we handle this situation better in future? Let the business users write whatever comes to their mind. At least you will have some input from business at that point of time when things happened, when it was fresh in the business mind. They will give you some very, very valid inputs of information security. Because information security is a two-way communication. You can't say, I know information security and business needs to follow something. Business also has great ideas, so we'll be able to capture their ideas using this second question. And similarly, how can we make this step faster? How can we make it automated? Are there any suggestions, like she was saying earlier, are there any suggestions or concerns from stakeholders? That could also be a question you can ask. Okay? This can be used at both the levels, at the second layer also, at the third layer also. We got like 10 more minutes. Okay. I'm not going to spend much time here, but there are some innovative techniques of identifying risks. You can again Google it. This presentation is going to be on ISACA website, so you can Google all these techniques. You will find answers. Some very, very good techniques for identifying risk. And most organizations don't use most of these techniques. They just stick to brainstorming for identifying risk, or incidents have happened. Now, that incident has added a risk in the risk register, which is surprising. Incident has already happened. You're already planning to do corrective action, but you put it in the risk register just to make your risk register longer. You can add for doing more brainstorming, but you have to use risk assessment techniques. And I find organizations really not using risk assessment techniques. And I could be wrong. I think most organizations are sticking to checklist, questionnaire for finding risk, or brainstorming, or audit and non-conformity incident reports. Some of these techniques are very, very good. I'll just touch upon 2 or 3. SWIFT is structured what if, which is kind of what I was doing earlier in the last slide. What if this fails? What if this happens? So you ask all those what if questions. Next is fault tree analysis and event tree analysis. One is going up, one is going down. So one is you think of a situation, you start going backward. Why would this happen? Root cause analysis, basically go down, 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 or a fishbone, which you would have probably read in quality. And one is going up, that okay, if this happens and this happens, to take 2 events and you correlate, okay, what will happen next? What will happen next? What will happen next? And use those different techniques to find risks. Okay, should I move forward, because this is more of a larger discussion. Okay, but I just wanted to bring it here because I think this is very, very important. And let's get to a case study, which was a question from you earlier. There was an organization, okay, and this organization had siloed approach for adopting standards. So CISO decided year 1, we want to get 27001, okay. 27001 standards bought, consultants hired, they came, they took all the policies and procedures, start doing a test of design, then a test of effectiveness, then they kind of gave gaps, and you track and close the gaps. Next year, CISO said, now, COBIT. I just went to a ISACA workshop, they taught me about COBIT 5, I want to implement COBIT. What do? Again, hire Deloitte. Deloitte comes in, asks for another $1 million, takes up your policies and procedures again, does the gap analysis, and gives you an issue tracker to close. That was a challenge with this organization. So every year there was a new standard, new regulation, or there was an upgrade. So I was on BS 7799. You heard about BS 7799? Very, very old 27001. And BS 7799 became 27001. So now let's again bring in consultants for 6 months and they'll do this gap analysis again. So this was the issue. The second issue was, it's kind of related to the first one, because there was siloed approach. Every time a law changes, HIPAA comes out with a new rule, or PCI comes up with 3.1, 3.2, again a new initiative is started. So different initiatives require a lot of resource bandwidth, external and internal. And the last issue was, they were kind of getting repeat issues. So audit used to come in, say, give you some issues, next year it was fine, year after that, again similar issues in a different business unit, or incident happens at one place, again happens at a different place, and then those two business unit leaders meet, oh, you didn't tell me about this, I could have just, fixed it. Why didn't you do it centrally? So those kind of things were the challenges. So they did their brainstorming, they did use 2-3 ideation techniques, and they finally said, okay, what are we looking at? They said, if we make a pyramid, the base is all my mandatory compliance. If my mandatory compliance is coming from my legal requirements, if I am a healthcare, I got HIPAA, or from my contractual requirements. My customers, they have told me something to do in the contract. So my mandatory requirements come broadly from legal, regulatory, and statutory requirements and your contractual requirements. Then above that, the second layer of the pyramid is all the standards I want to adopt. I want to adopt ISO 27000 series, I want to adopt NIST, I want to adopt PCI because I've got credit card now. So the second layer is the best practices and standards where you have got some level of flexibility to adopt. And finally, the topmost layer is the unknown. So regulations tell you what to do, standards tell you what to do, but what about, is that enough? No. As information security leaders, we know we have to go beyond compliance. What is the unknown? So to cover the unknown, there are 4 or 5 different things that are done. One is the common risk assessment, where I said the leaders need to add more techniques, but basically risk assessment. The second is scanning. So scanning is done by DLP, scanning is done by SIEM, scanning is done, correlation is done by user and entity behavior analytics. That's also an upcoming subject. If you've not read much about UEBA, read more about UEBA. It's very, very interesting. And metrics is throwing in data. And as I said earlier, if you read 27004, you would know that there's a lot of science that gets involved in terms of what happens after metrics. So metrics throws that unknown controls to you. And finally, root cause analysis. So when an audit has already happened, incident has already happened, you know the issues. If you're not just doing correction, if you're actually doing corrective action, which means you're doing root cause analysis, you will find out new controls to be implemented. So they then said, okay, these are the 3 layers which will define my information security posture. Now, how to attack these 3 layers? So we bring everything together. How do we bring everything together? As I said, all these different things will tell which controls to be implemented. What if we use a management principle which is called mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive? Have you heard about that? Can anybody quickly explain to me what is MECE? Used a lot by McKinsey's and now by most organizations. What is MECE? Mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. It is actually self-explanatory. What it basically means is different standards say the same thing in different words. So why to go standard by standard and instead map the requirements from different standards and make one common list? Like if you have done relational database management, there used to be a primary key and foreign key concept. Why not do it for controls? Why not bring all the controls together from contracts, from risk registers, from audit reports, from incident reports, from all the standards I want to adopt? So all those 3 layers, bring all the controls together, remove all the overlaps, create this one common list, and if there is a control, unique control, so it's a mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. It basically means no repeats, everything is unique, but this list covers everything. And for each control, if I map it to, okay, this control is present in ISO, this control is present in my policy here, this control is present in my procedure here, this control is present in my template, my guidelines, this control is mentioned in the supplier contract. If I do this activity of harmonization, next time If I have to do any internal assessment, I will do the assessment using the common controls. And the other big advantage of using common controls is that tomorrow, if you want to go to COBIT next year, and if you've not thought about COBIT in the first year, then the COBIT implementation is much, much faster because you need not go through all the procedures, you will go through your common controls. Okay, the speed increases, agility increases, accuracy improves, everything gets better. And then, again, I've got 2 minutes more, so I talked about UEBA, user and entity behavior analytics. Very important to have this done before UEBA. The UEBA vendors will tell you to get UEBA and all your problems will be solved. But if you've not done this and you're trying to implement UEBA, it will be a massive exercise with a lot of cost and resources gone. This needs to be done first before UEBA needs to be implemented. Okay? So just going back to the challenges, so they said the challenge was increasing legal and contractual requirements, and in combination with that every change required separate effort. Now it will not require separate effort because you have done MECE. And the second is knowledge is not getting transferred because incident, risk, and audit and everything was included in the MECE exercise, and you're running your risk assessments on MECE, so automatically every incident, non-conformity, new control gets passed on into the new procedure creation, in the new assessment, in the new audit reports, in UEBA, everywhere. So knowledge gets automatically transferred. So that's a great benefit. And after you do all this, speed, scalability, cost is reduced, productivity is increased, and I like this the most, you get more bandwidth to do more key initiatives in your organization. Right now, it's too much time is consumed in managing risk and compliance. Do you agree with that? That's all I had for today. Questions? Okay, everybody who asked questions in the beginning, are your questions answered, or is there something pending? Compliance burden is reduced, right? Because you're doing test once and comply to many. You're running your testing on common controls. Any questions? Yep. I will do it, yeah. There was some miscommunication. Thank you. I love you all. Thank you.